Hey there everyone, it's Jenna. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to do some really fun floral arrangements, and I'm going to share my tips and tricks for making them look professionally styled and arranged. So the first one we're going to start with is super easy. This is a tablescape. All we're going to do is just lay stems and florals down on the table to create a really elegant and sophisticated look. This is great if you're hosting a party or a get-together and you just want a cheap and easy way to make your space feel elevated. And then after that, we'll move on to building a beautiful bouquet. These are all made out of flowers and stems that you can find at your local grocery store or Trader Joe's. So it's really easy to kind of swap things in and out, and I'll kind of give my tips for picking flowers along the way as well. So that's great if you want to have this for a centerpiece, or maybe you want to give it as a gift for Mother's Day or a birthday. And then lastly, we will up the skill level a little bit and we'll use some floral foam blocks to create a beautiful wedding arch. I'll show you how I did that using a mix of faux flowers and real greenery. We actually did this for my sister's wedding recently and it turned out so beautiful. And I am not a professional florist, but I did do the florals for my own wedding as well as my sister's wedding. And I just want to share some of the tips that I learned along the way with you all, and I'll break it down in a really easy way so you can get that same professionally arranged look in your own space. So I hope you all enjoy this one, and without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, so first we're going to start with our tablescape, and this was actually inspired by how the tables were styled at my sister's rehearsal dinner. They used ruscus, baby's breath, and eucalyptus, and I just loved it because it was so simple but elegant at the same time. So I thought we would recreate this look with what we can find at the grocery store. And first, I always like to start with a runner of some sort. Fabric really helps to soften a tablescape, and here I'm just using cheesecloth. I found this at a Hobby Lobby in the sewing section for $6, and I love the subtle texture that it has and the casual feel that it gives off. So now it's time to pick out our flowers at Trader Joe's, and the first thing that I picked up was this silver dollar eucalyptus. This is nice and full, so it'll be a great base for our greenery, and it lasts a long time without water. And I would pick this over something like this baby blue eucalyptus for this project, just because we need something more leafy and flat. And then I also picked up some baby's breath just to add a pretty pop of white and some nice texture. So I ended up getting 2 of those eucalyptus packs, and I started laying them out on the cheesecloth. And when you're arranging them, you want to lay a stem down, and then when you're placing the next stem down, you just want to hide the bottom part of the stem underneath the leaves of the previous ones. So this way you get the effect of floating leaves all over the table and the twiggy stem parts aren't visible. And if you get any stems like this, I usually just cut the smaller stems off and then use those to fill in any empty gaps. And that's really it for the greenery base. It's super simple, and it is important to pick out greenery that is wide and leafy so you're able to get that lush base to build off of, because now all that's left is just adding some florals and texture. So now we're going to go ahead and take our baby's breath and just snip off little sections of it so that they look like this, and then we're going to tuck all of those little pieces into our greenery with the stem part facing down. And I don't feel like you need a ton of baby's breath. I only bought 1 bundle and I just used a little section of it, but it's just nice to add a little bit of texture and variety. So this is really sweet and simple as is, and you could just add some candles in here and it would be good to go. But if you want to dress it up a little bit more, you can add in some larger flowers like roses. And Trader Joe's had a ton of roses to pick from in so many different colors, so you can really customize it to the color palette that you want. But lucky me, our roses were in full bloom in our backyard, so I just went out there and cut some of our iceberg roses and brought them inside. And here I just placed them throughout the greenery, and when cutting the roses, I did cut the stems off, so there was maybe an inch of stem on these, and then I just faced the stem down towards the greenery. And I feel like the larger flowers just really take it to the next level and make this arrangement feel super elevated. And here I used about a dozen roses, which feels like a perfect number if you're just styling a single dining table like me. And for my sister's rehearsal, her in-laws purchased the greenery and florals wholesale, so that could be a good option if you are doing a larger event. But next I wanted to layer in some candles to finish it all off, and I collect these vintage brass candlesticks at thrift stores, and I love the worn patina that they have and the pretty brass color, but you could use battery LED candles or whatever candles you have on hand. I just love the elegant and classic look of the tall taper candles. So this was the finished look. I love how simple and easy this was to do. It looks like it was arranged by a professional florist, but all we did was just lay some stems down on a table for a really elegant look and feel. So what better place to build our bouquet than out in the garden? And I first started by laying down this super cute checkered tablecloth. It comes in both a round and rectangle shape, so I will link those down below. But if you're hosting even a small gathering, don't underestimate the power of a nice tablecloth. It really helps to dress up a space and can add a nice punch of pattern. So when building a bouquet, I found that the easiest way for me to form it is just to use a large mason jar. So I filled one up with water and I added some of the flower food that came with the flowers that I bought. So when shopping for bouquet flowers, there's a couple different types of categories that I look for. The first is a filler greenery, which is going to be our eucalyptus, and then the next is a smaller, more petite flower. So I usually like this type to be roughly the size of a quarter or smaller, and this is the kind of floral that I'll pick to be more colorful, so I grabbed these really beautiful peach carnations. And then I'll go with at least one type of larger statement flower. I loved these large mums, and I originally picked out this lilac color, but I ended up swapping it for a white at the very last second. But everything that I picked up for this bouquet was under $15. I probably would have bought a bouquet of roses also, but lucky me, again, a lot of the things in my yard were needing a prune, so I decided to utilize flowers and stems that I had growing back there. So along with a filler greenery, I like to have what I call a reaching greenery, and this just means something that's long and skinny and can help add some length to your bouquet. So I just trimmed some of these olive stems. Italian ruscus is also a really beautiful option for reaching greenery, just something that's more long and skinny as opposed to wide and full. And I also usually like to have two large statement flowers, so I was so excited because this was the first year that my sensuous rose bushes were large enough to cut, and these are just those beautiful old English style roses that almost look like peonies, and I just love the soft pink color and pretty texture that they have. The only downside is that they have a lot of thorns, so I like to use this rose stripper to clean them up, and I'll just cut the leaves off of the bottom of the stem and then strip the rose so it's nice and clean and easy to style in the bouquet. And I also leave the top leaves on there just to help add some variety to the foliage, which looks really nice once everything is all put together. And I also did the same for my olive stems because it's really important that we're only sticking the stem into the water, since space will be limited in that mason jar and it would just get super difficult to build if we didn't strip the leaves off of the bottom. So I do this for everything, even my store-bought flowers and greenery. This step right here makes a huge difference and allows you a lot of freedom when arranging the bouquet. So first I like to start with my reaching greenery, and this usually just helps form the main shape of the bouquet and gives you that basic structure that you can build off of. So once I feel like there's enough reaching greenery pointing in all different directions and I'm happy with the length of the stems, I'll then add in the filler greenery to help give us a lush full foundation before we start adding in the flowers. And this is just the eucalyptus that I got from the store. I didn't even end up using a full package of it because I wanted to have space for all of the florals. So I usually like to start with one of my statement florals first, and in this case I started with the white mums, and again here I used the stem stripper to take all of those extra leaves and bulk off of the stems so that they're easy to style. And it's also really important to cut your stems to the right size so they're not towering over the greenery, but they're not also sunk too far down there that you can't see them. And I also like to vary the heights just slightly so it looks a lot more gathered and organic. So next I'll add in my small florals, and these are the flowers that help the bouquet to feel a little bit more whimsical, and that variation in flower size and color just gives it some really nice visual interest. And again, here I will vary the heights of each stem just a little bit so it feels more wild. And honestly, this would be super pretty as is if you just want to stop here, but I usually will try to add one more statement flower of another color just to make the florals become the statement and what your eye is drawn to when you look at this bouquet. So we're just going to pop some of the garden roses in here, and these guys were a little bit more floppy and they didn't have a ton of structure, so I had to be pretty strategic about where I put them. But overall, I love the pretty pop of pink and the variation in color and texture that the flowers have. And the great thing is that from here you can just tie them with floral wire around the stems if you were using them for a wedding bouquet. The mason jar just helps to build a really nice structure, but what I'm going to do is simply just pop them in a decorative vase to give them more of a styled look. And that's it, just the rough formula and some simple tips for building a gorgeous, wild looking bouquet perfect for a gift, a centerpiece, or a special event. Okay, so next it's time to decorate this arch, and you can do any type of arch, whether it's a 90-degree angle or curved. You just might need some super long zip ties if it's made out of a thick wood, but we started with these caged floral foam blocks. My mom said that she got them at Hobby Lobby, and then we soaked them in water. Don't worry, we definitely went and got more water after this. We didn't know that we had access to water because we were setting this up the day before the wedding, and there was an event going on inside already, so we didn't know we had access to water, but we eventually got more later. You just want to make sure that it's fully saturated and soaked, and then we attached the foam blocks to the arch using zip ties. And the zip ties are nice because they make it really easy to take down afterwards. You just cut the ties with a wire cutter and it comes off super easily. We also just use the regular foam blocks as well. I don't think it matters if they have a cage on them or not, just to make sure, you tie them securely onto whatever you're using. And we also made sure to bring a wire cutter to the setup to trim the excess zip ties off. And this was what it looked like once we had finished attaching the floral foam. And the inspiration for this arch was to make it asymmetrical, since the theme for my sister's wedding was a little bit more whimsical and playful with colorful wildflowers, but you could easily customize it to the shape that you want with your floral foam block placement. So we were really trying to keep our costs down with this one, and we ended up trimming a bunch of these stems off of a tree in my mom's yard the night before. We did test them just to make sure that they'd be okay without water for a day or two and not look shriveled. We actually tested 2 stems from her yard, and one of them shriveled up overnight and the other one was fine, so those were the ones we ended up using. But I think it makes a really big difference when you use real greenery versus faux. But I did end up using these faux stems that she got on Temu, but first I wanted to lay the foundation with the real stems. I used these to create the main shape of the arch and give the base of the florals a good foundation to build off of. I wanted to use them on the ends because that was what was going to catch the light and the wind. So when those are the real flowers, it really makes a difference and tricks your eye into thinking the whole thing is real. Obviously, you can use real stems for the whole thing, but my sister really wanted faux flowers just to cut down on costs and make arranging them ahead of time easy. So my plan was to use the real greenery from the yard as an outer base and then fill in the middle empty spaces with all of the faux greenery and faux florals, just to help give off the illusion that it was all real. So once our greenery base was all set, it was time to add in the florals. And I always like to start with the big statement flowers first. I'll try to spread them out evenly so that once the medium and small flowers are added in, it all looks nice and balanced. And there's really no exact formula to this, especially when you're trying to make it appear wild and organic. But some of my main rules though that I like to stick to are having a good flower size variety. So meaning some large, some medium, and some small. You don't just want to have all large flowers or all medium-sized flowers. It can kind of fall flat that way, and the size variety really helps it to appear visually interesting. And one of my tips for doing arches specifically is to get some super large flowers, because it's such a large scale piece that you do want to have some giant flowers in there to help anchor it. You don't just want a bunch of medium-sized ones getting lost in the greenery. You really want to have that size variety in there. And we also used some smaller faux greenery picks to hide parts of the foam blocks that were exposed, but that's really it. My sister bought all of the faux flowers on Temu, so it was super cost effective. And for my wedding, I actually used real greenery and faux flowers as well. I stocked up on mine at end of season sales at places like Joann's and Michael's, so it's a very cost effective way to add an elegant touch to your wedding or an event. My sister loved how the arch turned out. It was such a stunning focal piece for her day, and it photographed beautifully.
All right, everyone, that about wraps up this video. I hope that you all enjoyed this fun floral arranging video. I hope you found it helpful and it maybe inspired you to kind of play with some flowers or go to your local grocery store or Trader Joe's and see what you can create. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really does help to support my channel, and be sure that you're subscribed because I post new videos every single week, so make sure you don't miss them by hitting the notification bell. I just want to thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!